Phazon Mines. Welcome back to more Let's Play Metroid Prime. Last time, we received two extremely important upgrades in the form of power bombs, which, while I would love to demonstrate, I don't want to because I don't want to waste our ammunition. And we received the grappling beam, or the grapple beam, after all this time. Unfortunately, this now means we have a lot, and I mean a lot, of backtracking to do. Pretty much throughout the entire game. Trust me, I know it may not be the most fun thing in the world, but at the very least, with all of the backtracking that we are about to do, we should get all but, I think, 2, 3, basically a handful of upgrades that are left in the Phazon Mines, which is notably a very good thing. So, first and foremost, we want to come all the way up this spire and go through that naughty little Bendisium blocked cave that we saw not too long ago, but you get the idea. It's been a fair little bit. Let's basically make our way on up and over, which is simple enough. And there, we should find the first of several upgrades. Not only the first, but I believe a couple on top of it. So if you remember right here, a wall made of Bendisium, which is where our lovely power bombs come in. Thank goodness we have them. Here we have a new grind puzzle, or not grind puzzle, a half pipe puzzle. I was thinking of grinding because I associate half pipes with skating, and so I was thinking of rail grinding, like a la something like Tony Hawk. Still, simple as pie. Bomb the middle area there after getting up the half pipe, receive a nice little missile, and be on your way. Honestly, not that bad. I know this half pipe a lot of people struggle with, just because the timing for it feels a little strange. Otherwise, in here, more specifically down there, we have the X-ray visor, the final visor. This one is a bit of a doozy. The X-ray visor is now acquired. Press right on the D-pad to activate the visor. Additional data has been downloaded. So, let's go give that a read, shall we? The X-ray visor can see through certain types of materials. Press the D-pad to the right to select the X-ray visor. Samus's notes. The X-ray visor can reveal invisible items, areas, and enemies. Robotic enemies jam the X-ray visor's frequency. Eliminate them to restore function to the visor. This visor, much like its cousin, the thermal visor, reveals to you a whole new world and way of looking at things. What the item lacks in color, it makes up for in sheer utility, showing you that there's a lot behind these walls. Because with any other visor, you can't see through them. But with the X-ray visor, and that enemy dropping a power bomb, you have a pretty good idea that you need to power bomb that wall to continue forward. Like the thermal visor, the X-ray visor is rather useful for a bunch of different puzzles, though it may not be immediately obvious at first. Admittedly, this is probably one of my least favorite visors in the game, because it has some of the most annoying items tied to it. It's not all that bad to use and look through, admittedly. I don't think it's nearly as harsh to look at as, say, even the thermal visor was. But it still has all the same downsides of the thermal visor. No heads-up display for the radar, you can't see the map, it has basically a monochrome color palette, which, although the thermal visor isn't monochrome, it at the very least, it has orange and purple coloring. But, much like the thermal visor, the X-ray visor has application in combat as well. As you can see, it allows you to always see and track the Chozo ghosts. This makes this visor a nigh essential item. And frankly, while you could, in a sheer technicality, beat the game without the visor, it is highly, 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 highly recommended you use it. And besides, if you're going for 100% item completion for any bonuses or things like that the game may offer, well, you're going to need to pick it up anyways. And besides, only a madman would probably not pick this visor up. Or maybe a speedrunner? Can't see that they would ever come back and get this because it's so out of the way. But, then again, in a 100% speedrun, I'm certain they would pick it up. Not sure when, but I imagine they would. As you can see, while the visor is useful for tracking invisible enemies, its usefulness is still relatively small because everything is either white or black, basically. And I say white or black, obviously it's not all white and black, but, well, you get the point. It's not exactly the easiest thing to see and look through. I think it's at least a bit more palatable to look through this visor than I would say the thermal scope, but not by much. I will say, I do like its subtle blue off coloring. Looks very nice. If it was truly just black and white, I think it would be way harsher on the eyes. But as it stands, I think it looks pretty good. So yeah, while it's not my favorite visor, in fact it's my least favorite visor, it does its purpose. And while its purpose may not be incredibly out there and obvious yet, at the very least, what it can do is help you in combat, if nothing else, immediately. Now you might think, oh, we're done. Time to just leave the room, be gone, and that's that. Well, the game is a little mean with this one. As you can see, there's a little something down here. I don't believe this is a bomb area. Oh, it is. Never mind. Point is, they hide that one pretty darn well on you. Because as you saw, there wasn't even anything to scan for that. But it reveals a Chozo artifact. So, if you weren't looking specifically in the water for almost no reason, you might miss this Chozo artifact. This is the artifact of Chozo, the 7th of 12. So what evidently we've missed. But that's going to be our primary goal of the next probably episode or two, is getting all of the Chozo artifacts, which, notably, we can't actually get all of them yet, but all of the ones in normal areas we can. And I guess by normal, I mean not the Phazon mines. The Phazon mines has some things in it that we still need to get and collect first, but before we can even progress there, there are actually several things we need here. I say several. Really, there's one thing we need, and if that wasn't obvious, it's the plasma beam, the red one that we've been spoiled about for such a long time. So, we're going to be collecting all sorts of pickups, such as missile containers, energy tanks, several beam combinations, Chozo artifacts, even a new beam itself, and pretty much anything else you can think of along the way, whether it be item pickups, health drops, you name it, we're probably going to find it, pick it up, and be well on our way. Point is, it's going to be just a lot of casual going back and forth, getting items we quote-unquote missed/could not get, and showing off new things with our brand new visor. Like I said, it's easily one of my least favorite items in the game, namely because of the associated puzzles with it. And I say puzzles very, very loosely. While they are technically puzzles, there's really nothing to notify you of them other than just, oh, use the visor everywhere you have ever been before. That's one of the reasons I'm not such a huge fan of this item. They really do not cut you any slack with this item. So as you can see, there's no indication there's a platform there whatsoever. All you know is there's a door over here. And if you didn't think to turn on your new visor, which granted you just got it, so why wouldn't you? You'd easily miss out on this missile expansion. Still, at the very least, it's not hard to just quickly throw it on, give the room a look, see if there's anything new there. At the very least, I'll give it that. Though, now that we have this visor, I don't believe there's anything in the sunken frigate, luckily for us. I believe we are completely done there, which, thank goodness. While I don't dislike the water area, in fact, I quite like its music, it is a little with some of the enemies, so I'm okay not having to go back there. The main two areas we're going to be going back to, and say it with me now, are Magmore Caverns and Phendrana Drifts. Which, hey, it'll be nice to finally clean them up and be done with them, won't it? So let's see. Want to save from here. Go back to Talon Overworld East. I think that is our best bet. Because at this point, I want to go pretty much directly to Magmore because we need that plasma beam. And, wouldn't you know it, you find the hot beam in the hot place. Bit ironic because you find the electric beam in the cold place and the cold beam in the normal area. You think they would have switched those around a little, but I ain't gonna complain. Point is, we've got plenty to do. And at the very least, at this point, you have so many upgrades and abilities that getting through all of these various areas should be a breeze. Sure, some of the backtracking may be a little annoying. Again, if it's not your thing, I can't say I blame you. But I always liked it because it gave me a further appreciation for the game's level design. They did a really great job of making it so that going back through each of the areas was always still pretty interesting. Plus, if you were new to the game, going back through areas several times gives you the chance to find items you may have repeatedly missed. Trust me, I know it may not seem terribly obvious, but hey, the game is made for children, you gotta remember. So, with that in mind, I still think it's pretty phenomenal, even as an adult. Also, thank goodness for the grapple beam. I think it's funny for how long in the game they tease you with this item, and then finally you get it, and really, it amounts to being a shortcut most of the time. There are a few items that are needed, that are locked behind this, namely the plasma beam. But a lot of the other things are either shortcuts or just small expansions, which, hey, not complaining. It's a little funny that, you know, an item you start the game with, you spend most of it without. Which, to be fair, with how they designed it, if you got the grapple beam immediately, you'd be able to get the plasma beam very quickly. In fact, I think there's even a way to get it without the grappling beam by using those clam enemies to damage boost yourself up. Now, if you notice, there's a red door up that way. So while we can go there, I'm going to wait for the return trip because we can't do everything in this room. That's also why, frankly, I want to kind of beeline it for the plasma beam because then we can do everything. While some of the game's upgrades are still in Phazon Mines, they only really interact with the things in Phazon Mines. Once you get the grapple beam, you can go back and get everything else in the game, barring the rest of the items in Phazon Mines, and pretty much be good to go. So, I would say it's highly worth your time coming back and doing all this pretty much right now. So let's see. Geothermal core. That is exactly where we want to go. Let's make sure I have my map oriented correctly. And so finally, this big, giant room we have been teased by for the entire game, even while having the ice beam for some of it, is now finally going to be accessible. And trust me, it annoyed me as a child too. Otherwise, using our lovely grapple beam, going through areas like this is a real cinch. I mean, seriously, they made the backtracking very accessible, which I think is pretty smart design. They evidently knew that you were going to be coming back here because obviously they put all the items here for you to come back to. But regardless, it's really nice that they actually considered that and gave some of the items you need for these puzzles an actual purpose beyond just one or two things. It's nice that the grapple beam feels like an actual movement upgrade rather than just something you use a whole twice, 3 times throughout the game to get several, like a handful of items. I was going to say several, which isn't necessarily incorrect, but not as many items as you probably would hope for such a late game upgrade. Which, I guess to be fair, later in the game means there's less items to get, right? But, as you can see, we have a very interesting set of platforms here. Now, if you notice, the only items we need to actually do this are Ice Beam and Spider Ball, and I guess Boost Ball. But you're going to need several of these items anyways in order to get those the later items anyways. So again, I'm pretty sure that there's a way for the player to actually get up to this area earlier than the grapple beam. Now, let's take a look here, because I want to say... Spider Ball track. Obviously, I was just talking about it. There we go. And let's take a look. Aha! Up here. But, with all that out of the way, we now unveil the rest of the room, which, as you can see, is actually a giant spider ball puzzle. Honestly, I kinda love this room once you actually unveil it. It really lets you use one of your cooler upgrades in a fashionable way. I also like to think that this room inspired a lot of the things you find in this game's sequel, Metroid Prime 2. They admittedly do a ton with the spider ball in that game. A lot more than they ever did in this game. And frankly, it shows. And I guess, from falling down, it's really cool just to look up and see all these tracks that technically were here the entire time. You just had no idea because you couldn't see them. Still, this now means I need to work my way back up, which, not that bad, but still, it is a little annoying. Sometimes the spider ball is a little finicky with the magnets, and other times it's a little hard to judge in 3D space just exactly where you are, especially while moving on a 2D area with it. Still, it's really not all that bad. Had I been a bit more patient, getting up here wouldn't have been all that bad at all. So back on the railing we go. I guess this time, I won't try to do a bunch of shortcuts and look cool. It is funny how often that is the downfall of someone playing a game like this, isn't it? They try to be like, oh, let me save a few seconds, and then they end up losing several seconds, if not minutes, to one little mess up. I always thought it was kind of funny. Now, otherwise, too, as you can see, some of these areas are a little precarious and tricky. Others aren't that bad. And there's the spider ball really showing its range off. It does give you a fair bit of leniency, but it really isn't a fan of sharp angles. Ow. So you got to be a little careful trying to go from one area to the next. Now in this part, you're supposed to drop down, but I always found just bombing your way up is much easier. Oh, and this drop. I can't tell you how many times I have done that drop, held the trigger in to use the spider ball, and just flopped off the wall completely. It's one of the saddest things in the game, because then you have to redo the whole room and it's not even your fault. But, with all that out of the way, we finally receive our prize, the plasma beam. The final visor and the final beam, all in one convenient episode. Not bad. Plasma beam acquired. Press C to the left to switch to the plasma beam. This weapon will open red doors. Additional data has been downloaded. The plasma beam fires streams of molten energy. This beam can ignite flammable objects and enemies. Press C to the left to select the plasma beam as your active weapon. Samus's note. Fire the plasma beam to open red doors. The plasma beam is very effective against cold-based enemies. Charge the plasma beam to fire a sphere of plasma. Enemies struck by this blast will be engulfed in flames for a few moments. The other thing that the game doesn't really tell you about the plasma beam is that it is an exceptionally strong weapon. The power beam has its hallmark of being easily the fastest beam and the most basic. The wave beam does good damage, shooting 3 beams at once in a burst, more or less. It's still decently fast. The ice beam is the slowest and probably the most powerful, but its shot speed is incredibly slow. The plasma beam does high damage and is more or less just a straight beam of damage. This thing has phenomenal damage capabilities because of how quick it is. It may not look it, but compared to, say, the ice beam or even the wave beam, this thing is fast. And sure, you can't shoot as fast as the power beam, but the damage output is still there. It is really good, and frankly, it's probably one of my favorite beams in the game. It is darn good. But as you can see, the fire enemies don't really care for it, which luckily doesn't matter too much. Most fire enemies you're going to fight really only show up here. So frankly, I love it. And on these guys, with one charged shot, you take them down instantly. It is darn good. Though there is one fatal flaw to the plasma beam. It has somewhat limited range. The ice beam, wave beam, and power beam all shoot to whatever wall or target they could possibly hit. The plasma beam stops a little shorter than some of them, and though it's not too big of a deal, it may in very niche circumstances come up. Still, for the power it provides, the speed of the overall shots, and just how effective it is, I seriously cannot stress just how good this beam is. And right here, we have an easy way to get back to the Phazon mines. So, once you're done doing all your item collecting in both the Talon Overworld, Chozo Ruins, Vendrana Drifts, and Magmore, you don't even have to go all the way back to the first entrance. You can just go right here. It's super convenient. I figured I'd open that up now while we had the power bombs. But as you can see, this beam is darn good. Plus, even if you only hit them once, you put fire on them, which does damage over time. This beam is made to defeat enemies, and man does it show. Plus, I always just thought it looked really cool too, how it elongates your arm cannon. It may not be the flashiest beam, sure, but man is it one of the most efficient. Plus, in most Metroid games, Plasma is typically the final upgrade that Samus receives for her beam cannon. And in a lot of the other Metroid games, they usually combine all into one super beam. So, although Prime does it a little differently, I still think how they handled it here is really great. Now, frankly, we have some choices. I think it would be wise for me to actually start by going this way, because this is a dead end overall. But if you remember, there were quite a few upgrades in here for us to get, involving the plasma beam, as well as the grappling hook, of all things. So, may as well get these ones out of the way. Especially, too, with our nifty new beam, as well as even the visor. There might be things in these rooms that we previously could not see. So, perhaps I shouldn't have jumped down this soon. Let's go back to the top and take a look with our new visor. Because I know in one of these rooms, there is an extremely mean thing that they hide. Get out of here. Also, too, 5 regular shots to take down one enemy. Not a bad rate. Not a bad rate at all. So let's take a look here. Anything up here? So I believe in one of the areas there is something for us. It may not be this room. It might be, I think, this one, Vendrana's Edge. If you look there at the top left, there's an area there. Do not forget that, because my goodness, have I forgotten that many times, and has it caused me many headaches? Yes. Yes, it has. Still, luckily, we are well on our way. At this point in the game, you are an absolute powerhouse. So, there shouldn't be any enemies that really stand in your way. And if there are, well, hopefully you get a little better at the game. But I can't really blame you if you're not great at first-person shooters, or even if, say, you know, the camera makes you woozy. Because I get it. Not everyone's acclimated to games like this. So, if it's one of your first times ever playing a game like this, I can't really blame you. They're not made for everybody. Nice. Got the grapple. As you can see, these pesky idiots are still here. Goodbye. And goodbye. While they did do a fair bit of damage, nothing to worry about. Now up here, say, yes, let's see. I forget where it is exactly, and it might be the other room I'm thinking about. No, this is certainly the room. Let's take a look. It's that one right there, in the very top middle. So, let's take a look. So as you can see, you have to have quite the angle on that in order to hit it. So let's see, I don't know if we'll be able to grab the little glider there, but if we can, it would save us some time. Nope, not quite. That is A-okay. I had the right idea initially, I just didn't have the right angle. These things happen. Oh, jump back on up. I think we can get them from here. There we go. Quite the long grapple there. But it worked out. If we go back up here, I just wasn't looking quite high enough. There we go. With one well-placed missile, it'll break the ice and let us get that missile upgrade after all this time. Trust me, this one annoyed me when I first played the game. I think I spent probably a good hour or two looking for how to actually crack this ice open and get that. Being a child and having so much free time. Boy, how I miss it. Still, at this point, basically continue on up through the wave beam door, and there should be plenty of prizes for us to claim. It is wild just how many secrets and goodies Phendrana holds for you. You wouldn't think it the first time you come here that the ice area is going to have most of your in-game upgrades, but you'd be surprised. So as you can see, even this room has a bunch of grapple points. So let's start hopping around and seeing just what we can do with them. And man, I love how the grapple hook feels. It's a little awkward at first, but once you get used to it, it feels really good. Let's also fall off the platform. Of course, I would have it no other way in this game. For some reason, I just love slipping off platforms. Couldn't tell you why. But luckily we didn't fall all the way down. Just a little bit. And even then, we're so mobile that even if you lose a little bit of time falling down a platform, usually you can get back to wherever you were in mere seconds, which is really nice. Unless, of course, you know, you're at the end of that big spider ball track room and, well, you fall all the way down. Then, yeah, that really sucks. So let's take a look here. Platforms are still here. Sometimes you never know. So I like to use the scope just to make sure, but wouldn't you know, hidden wall. Like I said, they get mean with where they hide these things. Chozo artifact acquired. This is the artifact of spirit, the 11th of 12. So, yeah, we're going a little bit out of order, but hey, you gotta get them all, so order doesn't matter too much. Drill rig operators are to report any symptoms of Phazon madness immediately. Orpheon crash site is an orange level security zone. Final transmissions from the Orpheon point to a massive security breach. All personnel must inspect their life support systems before reporting to the mines. Interesting. It's also a bit strange that they had an artifact and then just held it in what is effectively a storage room, right? Not the only one seeing how goofy that is. Either way, we've seen that the pirates aren't exactly renowned for their intelligence. And, as an added bonus, a nice power bomb expansion is here. Very, very useful. And a little bit more to read. Impact core is estimated to be 800 meters from termination point of Phazon vein Omicron. Phazon Vein Omicron has the highest yield per cubic meter of all excavation sites. Drones reporting for mine duty must check in at Control Tower for debriefing. Interesting. Still, that's almost all of the upgrades this way. If you remember, back in the, I believe, gravity chamber, there is that grapple point, or, well, the missile that needed something to be melted. Kind of spoiled it there. In order to even get that missile, you need the grapple beam. But it's kind of a moot point because in order to get the ability to melt the ice, you need to already have the grapple beam. Also, I totally just went the wrong way. Excuse me, gentlemen. We need to go back this way. Very nice. Yeah, you guys are back, yada, yada, yada. It really is not my concern. Thank you, Mr. Door. Now, one thing I do wish the plasma beam could do is destroy the bomb boos, but other than that, it's pretty much just the ultimate weapon. Sure, enemies that are resistant to fire don't care about it, but frankly, there aren't a ton. At least ones that'll actually give you trouble. As you can see, the space pirates really are weak to it. Now, let's see here. Come up this way. And simply jump on over, saving us plenty of time. Come back through here. Get rid of the security drone, pesky little thing. And as you can see, they're also fairly weak to the beam too. Also see there's more than one, but frankly, I can't be bothered. So back in here, hello Bombu. Break the ice. Grab the grapple hook point, which is precariously on a stalagmite. Grab your missile expansion. That should be all of the items over this way. Keyword being should be. It's very possible I might miss a thing or two here and there. But we'll figure that out once we've grabbed everything and finished up Phazon Mines eventually. It's gonna be a little while. But I think next time we play Metroid Prime, we'll head back to the research core in Research Station Hydra. Namely, because of up here. If you remember, there was something we could melt. So, as always, I'm Brad. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.